Babylon's Banksters, Scalar Resonance. Babylon's Banksters, Scalar Resonance. You're listening to Babylon's Banksters, Scalar Resonance, presented by Hakeem Alebokis Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with ExercisingYourMind.com and UniquilibriuM. This edition's reading focus comes to us once again from Babylon's Banksters, The Alchemy of Deep Physics, High Finance, and Ancient Religions by Joseph P. Farrell, 2010. You can find this book on archive.org to read or download for free. And this is continuing from yesterday, where I left off from part 3 in the book, where we were talking about Nikola Tesla. And there was some very interesting stuff in there, and about Tesla's death ray and how he became more desperate to get funding for his experiments, where he finally released the idea of what his weapon or tool was actually capable of, and perhaps even maybe the fact that he tested it over a barren part of Russia, where it seemed like 500,000 pounds of TNT were exploded with no apparent debris or anything else found to indicate, which cropped up a whole lot of conspiracy theories about what it might have been. So let's take a look at where we left off here, and I'll finish just to lead into it just a little bit. I'm just arbitrarily picking a place at the end of the last section to read from, and I'll continue into it. It's very short here. So, continuing from yesterday's reading, it says, self-evidently, such stories abounded in the 1920s in the wake of Tesla's pronouncements. But there are sound reasons to take them seriously, especially in the case of Germany. Under the terms of the Versailles Treaty, Germany was prohibited from development of heavy artillery over certain calibers, and absolutely prohibited from having tanks or even an air force, and its standing army was limited to a mere 100,000 men. However, the treaty did not prohibit development of these types of weapons, and thus it is logical to assume that Germany in particular would seek to do a technological end run around the restrictions of the treaty. Even more interesting, however, is the fact that Nicholson reports that one British researcher allegedly involved in the development of such systems, J.H. Hamel, observed that the German system was based, quote, on an entirely different principle, end quote, than those in evidence in other reports, while Hamel explicitly states that his own, quote-unquote, death ray is based on Tesla's Colorado Springs wireless power transmission experiments. It is also interesting that it appears that he misinterpreted the nature of those experiments, for he built a large Tesla coil and was apparently attempting to beam power by its means through the atmosphere, the exact opposite, it will be recalled, of what Tesla was trying to do. This makes his statements all that much more interesting, for by pursuing an entirely different principle, were the Germans in fact using the earth as the transmitter and the atmosphere as the ground, as Tesla himself indicated? We will never know, but it is interesting to note that whatever they were doing, it was not the same as what everyone else was doing, according to Hamel. B. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden on scalar resonance. But what is precisely the relationship between Tesla's use of the Earth itself as his transmitter and the far more dangerous idea he himself suggests that such standing waves, as he observed at Colorado Springs, could be used as a means of engineering and manipulating the physical medium itself for whatever purpose, constructive or destructive. The answer to this question are provided in certain suggestive statements Tesla made in a trial transcript during a trial in New York State. Tesla, now in dire financial straits after J.P. Morgan stopped all further backing of the Wardenclyffe wireless power transmission project, had given the deed of his Wardenclyffe property to the owner of a hotel where he resided as security in return for him being allowed to room in the hotel. When Tesla was unable to pay the hotel bill, the owner, naturally enough, foreclosed on the property, winning a judgment against Tesla. Tesla appealed the case, and it is this transcript that contains some interesting descriptions of the Wardenclyffe property by Tesla, and some even more interesting allusions to the physics properties he thought to be behind it. I cite the transcript at length. By Mr. Hawkins. Question: were there any other structures upon the premises other than that brick factory or laboratory which you have just described? Answer: Tesla speaking. Yes, sir. There was the structure which in a certain sense was the most important structure, because the power plant was only an accessory to it. That was the tower. Question: please describe the tower as to dimensions and material and method of construction and the kind of construction. Mr. Fordham: we renew our objection, if the court please. This is entirely immaterial, irrelevant, and incompetent until after they have succeeded in establishing their contention that the deed is a mortgage. The referee: I will take it. Mr. Fordham: exception. Answer by Tesla: the tower was 187 feet high from the base to the top. It was built of special timber, and it was built in such a way that every stick could be taken out at any time and replaced if it was necessary. The design of the tower was a matter of considerable difficulty. It was made in the shape of an octagon and pyramidal form for strength that was supporting what I have termed in my scientific articles a terminal. By the referee. Question: there was a sort of globe at the top? Answer. Tesla answering: yes. That, Your Honor, was only the carrying out of a discovery I made that any amount of electricity within reason could be stored, provided you make it of a certain shape. Electricians even today do not appreciate that yet, but that construction enabled me to produce with this small plant many times the effect that could be produced by an ordinary plant of 100 times the size. And this globe, the framework was all specially shaped, that its girders had to be bent in shape, and it weighed about 55 tons. By Mr. Hawkins. Question: of what was it constructed? Answer by Tesla: of steel, all the girders being specially bent into shape. Question: was the tower that it supported entirely constructed of wood or partly of steel? Tesla's answer: that part alone on top was of steel. The tower was all timbers, and of course the timbers were held together by specially shaped steel plates. The referee: braces? The witness: yes, steel plates. I had to construct it this way for technical reasons. The witness would be Tesla. The referee: we are not interested in that. Question: was the tower enclosed or open? Tesla's answer: the tower, at the time of the execution of this deed, was open, but I have photographs to show how it looked exactly and how it would have been finished. Question: after you delivered the deed, was the tower ever enclosed? Tesla: no, it was just open. Question: now the dome or terminal at the top, was that enclosed? Tesla: no, sir. Question: never enclosed? Tesla: never enclosed, no. Question: had that structure ever been completed? Answer: the structure so far, if I understand the terms right, yes, the structure was all completed, but the accessories were not placed on it. For instance, that globe there was to be covered with specially pressed plates, these plates. Question. That had not been done, had it? Tesla. That had not been done, although I had it all prepared. I had prepared everything. I had designed and prepared everything, but it was not done. Question. Was the structure of the tower in any manner connected with the brick building or power plant? Tesla. The tower was separate. Question. I understand, but was there any connection between them? Tesla. There were, of course, two channels. One was for communicating, for bringing into the tower compressed air and water and such things as I might have need for operations, and the other one was to bring in the electric mains. The referee. Question. In order to do that, there was, as a matter of fact, was there not a well-like shaft going down right in the middle of the tower into the ground some 50 or 60 feet? Tesla. Yes. You see, the underground work is one of the most expensive parts of the tower. In this system that I have invented, it is necessary for the machine to get a grip of the earth. Otherwise, it cannot shake the earth. It has to have a grip on the earth so that the whole of this globe can quiver. And to do that, it is necessary to carry out a very expensive construction. But I want to say this underground work belongs to the tower. Mr. Hawkins. Question. Anything that was there, tell us about. Tesla. There was, as your honor states, a big shaft about 10 by 12 feet, goes about 120 feet, and this was first covered with timber and the inside with steel, and in the center of this there was a winding stairs going down, and in the center of the stairs there was a big shaft again through which the current was to pass. And this shaft was so figured in order to tell exactly where the nodal point is, so that I could calculate every point of distance. For instance, I could calculate exactly the size of the earth, or the diameter of the earth, and measure it exactly with 4 feet, within 4 feet with that machine. Question. And that was a necessary appurtenance to your tower? Tesla. Absolutely necessary. And then the real expensive work was to connect that central part with the earth. And there I had special machines rigged up which would push the iron pipes, one length after another, and I pushed these iron pipes, I think 16 of them, 300 feet, and then the current through these pipes take hold of the earth. Now that was a very expensive part of the work, but it does not show on the tower, but it belongs to the tower. Question. Tell the court generally, not in detail, the purpose of that tower and the equipment which you have described in connection with it. Mr. Fordham, how is that material? The referee, I will take it. Mr. Fordham, we accept. Tesla. Well, the primary purpose of the tower, Your Honor, was to telephone, to send the human voice and likeness around the globe. By the referee. Question. Through the instrumentality of the earth? Tesla. Through the instrumentality of the earth. That was my discovery that I announced in 1893. Mr. Hawkins. Question. The purpose then briefly was for wireless communication to various parts of the world? Tesla. Yes, and the tower was so designed that I could apply to it any amount of power, and I was planning to give a demonstration in the transmission of power, which I have so perfected that power can be transmitted clear across the globe with a loss of not more than 5%, and that plant was to serve as a practical demonstration. Back to Joseph P. Farrell's comments. Now look what we have. 1. At the same approximate time as Tesla is making these statements in a trial, he is making statements for the New York Times that indicate the same technology of wireless power transmission is capable of using its longitudinal waves to manipulate the physical medium, not just the Earth itself, either for constructive or massively destructive purposes. 2. In the transcript itself, Tesla is very careful to state that not only is his system for communications purposes, but for the express purpose of the transmission of power in any amount. 3. To do this, Tesla also clearly states in the transcripts that the tower structure at Wardenclyffe also had a deep shaft so that this system could physically and electrically grip the Earth and grip the entire globe and make it quiver, and to do this, 4. Tesla also clearly implied that it was necessary to have as exact a measurement of the Earth's size of its geometry as possible. In other words, the geometrical and nonlinear properties of the Earth itself were essential components to the system. The reason it was essential may be recalled from our previous remarks with respect to Dr. Hartmut Müller's global scaling theory, namely that longitudinal pressure waves in the medium itself are responsible for the local warping of space-time and the clustering of objects near certain nodal points where such waves overlap. To put it differently, large masses such as planets or stars are the natural and most efficient resonators of these waves. This scalar coupling of the solar system provides a major check on unrestricted use of large strategic scalar EM weapon systems. If significant scalar effects are produced on Earth in a pulse mode, pulsed disturbance of the Earth-Sun and Earth-Moon systems result. Here a danger exists that one or more natural resonances of the coupled systems may be excited. If the feedback stimulation of the Sun is not insignificant, for example, large sunspot activity may result sometime thereafter, say in a day or two. If too much or too sharp stimulation occurs on Earth, the coupled resonance response from the Sun could be disastrous. Accordingly, use of huge scalar electromagnetic weapons is a double-edged sword. Unless carefully employed, use of the weapons could cause a terrible backlash to the user as well as the victim, and even accidentally cause the destruction of the Earth itself. That was from Hartmut Müller's commentary. Continuing. In other words, precise knowledge of local celestial geometries, including the Earth, is at all times essential in such a system as Tesla envisioned. And this is, perhaps, why he himself ultimately described the implications of his technology for a deeper physics able to engineer the physical medium itself destructively or constructively. And note, in Tesla's vision, it was quite essential that the system itself be physically and electrically rooted to the Earth, for the Earth indeed was a huge component in a gigantic electrical circuit. Thus, they do greatly err who would maintain that such a system would more practically be deployable on satellites in space, for the whole point of such longitudinal waves of stress in the medium itself is that they are best established by manipulating their natural resonators, whole planets and stars. To say otherwise is entirely to misunderstand the physics. The best place for the deployment of such systems is precisely on the surface of planets. C. Conclusions. So at the end of this journey, we have the following things. 1. There clearly exists a physics of open systems in which ever-changing celestial geometries exercise mutual physical influences. 2. This physics points to a deeper physics of the physical medium itself, which is manipulable via longitudinal waves of stress within the medium, which in turn may be accessible via methods of electrical stress in nonlinear mediums such as the Earth, or, in the case of stars, rotating plasmas. 3. This physics and the ability to incorporate whole planets as components of a technology clearly existed and was asserted as early as the turn of the last century in the work and words of Nikola Tesla, who noted both its benign and malign implications, were both logical and simultaneous entailments of that same physics and system of technology. 4. As the database of physical science expands, with increasing measurements over a vast and disparate body of knowledge, correlations between seemingly unrelated systems began to be noticed, and these correlations included cycles of human economic, sociological, and emotional activity, suggesting the possibility of a deep correlation between physics, economics, and celestial geometries. 5. Significant indicators were also found of discrete but definitive corporate and financial interest in the discovery of the principles of these connections between physics and economics, and in the case of Tesla and Morgan, of efforts to privately develop and later suppress its instrumentalities. It is in those last 2 points, a deep correlation between physics, economics, and celestial geometries, and the private development and suppression of its instrumentalities, that we discover a host of questions and a very ancient, indeed paleo-ancient connection. 2. The temples, the stars, and the banksters. This part is coming up next, but I'll first read this quotation from it here that reads, "So it was that the temple that should owe fealty to the gods alone became a front for the international money creative force of that day and age, connected closely with the trade in precious metals and slaves as it must have been." David Assel, The Babylonian Woe, page 25. So that's the conclusion and leading into part 2 of part 2 of the book. It's going to lead to part 2 of this book, which leads us to chapter 4, called Temples, Templates, and Trusts, the Ancient Roots of a Deep Relationship. And that starts with a quote that says, "The determination of stars to which some of the Egyptian temples, sacred to a known divinity, were directed, opened a way, as I anticipated, to a study of the astronomical basis of parts of the mythology." And that is by J. Norman Lockyer. To put it in the terse language of Bastiat, society implies exchange, and exchange, money. Alexander Del Mar. I'm going to end it there and maybe go on to the second part of here in chapter 4. I want to see how far this reaches into here, and maybe if I can finish this today. It might be a little lengthy to go into, but I'm kind of addicted to it. So thanks for stopping through or sitting a spell. What's up, Taylor Made? Topics with Mac. Hello, Zen Master. Smith James. Andrew Johnson. Mon. Eric Peterson. Zoe. Lionel Bailey. Dylan Mejia. Don Shree Bernard. And what's up, Truly Julie? How y'all doing? Yeah, I think I'm going to start to read in this second part, but I'm going to save it for a completely separate reading altogether here. This part does look pretty extensive. As I would not expect anything less from this author of Babylon's Banksters here. But I'll see how much of it I can get through. First, after a little break. Yeah, so it might be traversable here. I think I might be able to get through it. Let's see if I open this up again. I'm going to get into that fourth part there. So, all right, y'all. You've been listening to Babylon's Banksters, Scalar Resonance, which was a part 2 of the reading I finished yesterday. And this is going to be called The Temples, the Stars, and the Bankers, Temples, Templates, and Trusts. But right now, you've been listening to Babylon's Banksters, Scalar Resonance, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with ExercisingYourMind.com and UniquilibriuM.